Professor Shyamala Mani, and she's from NIUA, New Delhi. She'll speak on where PPPP means Private Public People's Partnership. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. I'm really grateful to the organizers, not only for letting me speak here and giving me a chance to present, but also for serving tea at the right time, and so that all of you are awake. This is about a slightly futuristic idea about how we can take the PPP, which everybody has been discussing, to a certain level where we can be more sensitive to the people, and especially the people who have been involved in waste management up till now, who are the waste pickers and even the municipal workers and all those sanitary working people who have been formally and informally involved with waste management. So what is PPP? Everybody knows that it is an alternative to just privatization. So there is a co-ownership between the public sector and the private organizations. And through PPP, it was believed that the private sector dynamism and access to finance, knowledge of technology, managerial efficiency will come into the public sector, which is supposed to look after things like social responsibility, environmental awareness, local knowledge, job creation and all that. But how did it really start, the evolution of PPP? In Government of India, through Ministry of Food and Agriculture, even in the 1960s, they started giving out loans for composting. And Ministry of Health and Family Welfare also had a national mission on environmental health and sanitation. Ministry of Urban Development, through the CPHEO, prepared a draft policy paper on funding various requirements for MSWM. Then in 1990, there were a whole lot of PILs, public interest litigations, relating to MSWM. And around late 1990s, the increase in the private role, we could see that there were people who had small composting plants, people who are willing to talk to the RWA, somehow get them to segregate their waste, and they would take it to a place which was just outside the city or maybe even within the city. So these were the kind of initiatives that were going on in the country. And then the Supreme Court appointed the Asim Burman Committee, which then recommended that there should be institutional, financial and various types of incentives so that there is a private sector participation. So at that time it was called PSP, and the rationale was, of course, that PSP had potential for funding, and most of the urban local bodies were bankrupt. You might have heard about the case of Ratlam, you might have heard about the case of several other municipalities, where they were taken to court by certain citizens and they just said that, look, we just can't do anything because we don't have the money. So they said that let's bring the PSP, that is, let's bring the private sector. Then came the Municipal Solid Waste Management Rules. Unfortunately, this was the culprit, because in the biomedical waste management rules, who is responsible? The healthcare industry. In the industrial and the hazardous waste management rules, who is responsible? The industries. In municipal solid waste management rules, who is the generator? Is the people. Who is responsible? Is the municipality. So that is the reason why you find that just because we pay some property tax or conservancy tax, as the British terminology, we get the license to throw the garbage wherever we want. And the municipality has to come behind us and pick up all that waste and do what? So this was one of the biggest loopholes which needs to be plugged, first of all. If it is polluter pays, then the citizen has to be responsible and the citizen has to be penalized and has to be made to pay. Unfortunately, that's not there. And that's the reason why many of the municipal commissioners are facing major problems. Several reforms and guidelines and development of model municipal bylaws and all have come. But despite the 13th Finance Commission, where thousands of crores of rupees has been allocated, despite that, we find that this is the state of our cities. It just continues. Unfortunately, you will find that these poor people who have been actually involved in the waste picking, removing at least 15 to 20% of the waste, segregating it, using it, they are completely left out, and they are in fact living in the most difficult circumstances. So if you see the urban agglomeration, according to the 2011 census, we have data now that we have more than 7,900 urban agglomerations, and out of which 468 only are class 1 cities, and just 53 are more than 1 million, I'm sorry, and the rest of it, almost 7,600 towns or cities, whatever you call it, they're all small towns. And the composition, we can easily see, everybody has said this, more than 50% of the garbage in India is organic waste. And despite the devolution of funds from the 12th Finance Commission, you can see here, I believe this is the pointer, you can see here, I don't know if this is not working, the last one, class 1A, it's got a huge amount of investment. It's the maximum capital investment. But despite that, you just see this, the benchmark backlog shows that the class 1A cities, which have received the highest amount of funds from the 12th Finance Commission, still have not been able to show any better performance than the class 4 or the smaller cities. So then came the JNNURM. Of course, JNNURM has been started from quite some time, and under the obligatory reforms, there's a lot of encouragement for PPPs, and most importantly, there is a lot of encouragement for the involvement of NGOs, CBOs, RWAs in planning, implementation, O&M. But where do we see it? We don't see it anywhere. You see the, everybody, if you see the appraisals, you see that all the mandatory reforms are carried out. Obligatory reforms are carried out. But the optional reforms very often get left out. And the present status is that, like somebody said, the 70 million tons is going to become 370 million tons. Service levels are below par. There are huge gaps on coverage of collection or scientific processing, and diversion of landfill is hardly anything, mainly because many of the composting plants are from mixed solid waste and the rejects are very, very high. And so after so much of investment, huge quantities of investment, we have not been able to divert most of the waste from the SLFs, which are sanitary landfills, and everything is going almost like 60-70% of the waste is going to the SLF. There are SLFs in Surat, it's constructed. There are many other SLFs. We are talking about those particular ones. Ahmedabad has got a constructed SLF. And so these are going to that. And the most important thing is many of the concessioners, they are having a very good time because under JNNURM, they get a whole lot of funds. They get all the capital investment. They put up these huge plants. They charge tipping fee, the concessioning document. There's any amount of discussion, controversy on the concessioner documents that, it does not follow some of the guidelines. Some say that it does follow some of the guidelines. There's a whole lot of redundancy in the types of concessioning documents that are available. And then finally you find that the informal rack picker has to literally fight with his own kith and kin who is employed by the concessioner to even have access to the waste which is there in the garbage bin. So some of the PPP projects, we have different types of PPP projects. We have the door-to-door collection ones, which are some of the older ones, street sweeping, which is going on in Surat, Hyderabad. We have integrated treatment and disposal ones. We have got just the storage and transportation ones. And then we have got the final one, the integrated MSWM, which is going on in Guwahati and Hyderabad. None of these have shown as if, there is a major improvement. In none of these models, we have really got the answer. And also the scope of activities, they may change, they may vary. Some have, the typical PPP format, maybe a management contract, sometimes they are service contracts. Like Mr. Prasad Rao pointed out, a concessioner is an owner. Where is the question of contract? But unfortunately, this is what the kind of the wordings, if you go through the actual PPP document, this is what we find, that either it's a BOT or a variance of a BOT, and then of course the O&M contract in that. And then of course the waste pickers, they obviously rally against the company because there are, like somebody said, 70,000, 100,000 families are there in every city which are dependent on waste for their livelihoods. So if you completely eliminate, so they have said in Delhi, for instance, they have said that look, we can do 12 crores a year from composting and 3 crores for transportation of the contract costs. So why don't you give this job to us? But no, you can see that, even in these various types of PPP formats, nothing is given to the actual original waste picker or the waste retriever or the rack picker or their associations or their federations. This is very, very unfortunate. And then, here also, even in places like GHMC, they have said this, that it costs 700 rupees per ton for doing segregation. But the concessionaire is being given 1,431 ton just for carrying this mixed waste to some other place. It's a tippage. So how is it that we have such a huge elaborate system of accounting and auditing, and despite that, double the amount is being given to somebody and nobody is even asking a question? You and I are citizens. It's our taxpayer money that is going in. Are we not going to ask questions? We don't have any problems in chucking the, our cups or our wrappers out of the car windows. But are we not even going to ask about our taxpayer money? So the MSW collection and treatment, you can see I've taken a few countries, and in India, you can see that open dumping is maximum. Then comes the sanitary landfilling. In some places, a few places, composting and recycling is very minimal, and then of course incineration. Comparatively, you can see there are places like China or Thailand or Indonesia, even Bangladesh seem to be doing some of the work. Another overview which I try to get was small scale versus medium scale versus large scale. And you can see here that in the various types of investment costs, obviously the small scale and the medium scale seem to be having much less investment costs. And even in terms of the profit, all the figures on the right hand corner, which are in brackets, are obviously negative. You can see that it is the small scale ones which are actually making a profit. You can see the one in Thailand. Here you can see that they have medium scale ones, and then you have the one in Indonesia and the one in Bangkok. These seem to be making the actual profits. So this is one from Matale from Sri Lanka, and you know that this box type of composting, and they have been doing very well. This is Dhaka in Bangladesh. Somebody Rosita spoke about that, and they have been doing also very well. This is our own. This is at Suryapet, that, the segregation of waste. This whole thing was built by the DC for the Municipal Commissioner, Kader Saab at that time. And then this is how the Suryapet people, they organized themselves. And it was because of the Municipal Commissioner's effort that, the segregated waste was transported, and also vermicomposting was done. And this is the kind of rich harvest. They didn't have to promote, or they didn't have to put it into any plastic covers or something like that. The farmers just took it. They of course do a little bit of blending, but only with natural material like rock phosphate. And this is Tirupur, and here also, even in very narrowest streets, they have made arrangements of how to take the waste, even from very narrow streets. And of course the education part, then you can also see that they have involved a PPP, they have involved a private entrepreneur for making the compost, and they have gone ahead and also done certain amount of recycling from the waste that comes, like paper recycling. So that's what I was saying, that if you separate the waste at the correct time, you can get a lot more resources and also be able to do recycle. Here again, this is a paper unit, which the Tirupur municipality, and here they use the windrow composting method. And this is Kihim, which is in Maharashtra. Here you can see that they have used a smaller motorized vehicle, and again the separation of waste. Obviously there is a certain amount of secondary separation. You get about 40% separation only from homes, but then the rest can be recycled. This is biomethanation in a small scale, biomethanation at Coimbatore in Chennai in a larger scale. And this is what Rosita was talking about in Bangalore, the project that I did when I was part of CEE. And you can see, very important to involve the RWAs, The women themselves can do the door-to-door collection of segregated waste. This is what the ULB has to earmark a certain amount of space, and this was properly experimented. So we worked out, like one pit, and we only took 1 month. I don't know who is talking about 3 months. Aerobic composting, we used to turn the waste, and we had 5 pits in one battery, and by the time we came to the 5th pit, the first pit would be ready. And it's still going on. You can go to Kalyan Nagar and see it. Managed completely by the RWAs, and it was decentralized within the area. So every 1,000 or 2,000 households would have one composting unit, and the distance we would keep would be at least 10 meters. So no habitation within 10 meters. That was one thing that we got completely written from the BDA when we started the project. So you can see here turning, sieving, and the Bangalore Development Authority giving the land for and shed for parking the vehicles. This is Coimbatore. A lot of education training of the people who are working, because those are also stakeholders. People who are in the municipalities are stakeholders, and very often they also take the waste. So there's a lot of education and training involved. You can see the impact. And the mayor, the commissioner taking a lot of interest. That is a very important aspect. Here we are doing used polythene bags. They are being woven into various types of products. You can make products, and these are some things that the waste pickers would be able to sell. So instead of saying marketability of waste, it's very important that you recover it fast and make it into something that can be used. So these are paper products, and this is polyester metal, like the kurkura and chips packets and various things, which is just being woven with grass. And the Pune model, we feel, is the one which is really going at a city level into the PPPP, which is with the people. And you can see the Swachh private-public partnership. And these are the kind of equipment they are giving to the waste pickers. There's a huge amount, this whole area that they are covering is by the waste Swachh, whom they call, who are all erstwhile rack pickers, who have all been rehabilitated with proper type of equipment. These are the places where they are being asked to do secondary segregation. And you can also see that they are doing other things like eco-friendly Ganesh Utsav, again rallies, education, zero garbage, where there is the involvement of the waste pickers for segregation, collection, transportation, and then of course the other private entrepreneurs also come in. And there is biogas also there, biomethanation plants. There is place for people who are doing decentralized, these kind of innovative technologies, and also very large scale. So it's not as if Pune is just doing some small decentralized. They are involving everybody. And they are also finally, but only thing what they are feeling is that because of this integrated model and involving the people, that they are able to have the landfill site minimized. So these are the achievements, that they have no open dumping. They have been able to get a 9001 certification also, and ISO certification. And thank you very much. So these are some of the products.
Thank you, madam. Excellent presentation.